November 14th at 6 p.m. And I would ask that Brandy note roll call, and I would ask Doug to lead us in the pledge. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, there's Sheila. We are without Renee tonight, but other than that, we have a quorum and everyone else. So thank you for taking time. I don't have any announcements at this point, so we will ask, do we have minutes from the previous meeting?
We do not have minutes for this packet. The team was working the elections and that took precedence.
All right, well, we'll just have 2 sets next time, right? All right. I don't know of any appearances unless someone else does. All right. Then we will move to new business, beginning with Section 18 Transition Update Saga.
Saga is exactly right. So as you all know, we were scheduled to originally have our closing transaction on October 24th. HUD let us know on October 21st that that would not be taking place because our documents that we submitted to them for review are still under review. We ended up having a call with the Milwaukee field office and they were sympathetic. There were a lot of issues, I think, that came about that led to that, which is fine. They realized that we were in dire straits and they pressed the accelerator button to OGC, Office of General Counsel in Minneapolis, which was the entity that was reviewing this, to try to see if they could get them to move a little bit quicker on it. After that, we did get some feedback, I think within a week and a half or so. And they had 2 small questions, one of which was clarifying the, originally, one of the methods that we used for disposition was the seller's note, which we went back and forth on and then changed that to fair market value. They still had a question on that. I was able to show them the approval letters from SAC. They were fine with that. Then the other one was actually interesting. And predates me. They were questioning when we made the change from a housing authority, from the Divorced Housing Authority to the CDA, did we have that documented? Because they don't, while we had an approving resolution and our SAC approval for this disposition was for the CDA, all of our HUD documents were with the housing authority. So we sent them the ordinance that created the CDA. They're reviewing that currently. I sent that to them on the 7th, I think. And then the field office forwarded that along on the 8th. So that's still under review. I'm hoping to hear back sooner than later. There's a couple potential things that could come from that. If they determine that we need to amend like our declaration of trust and some of these other documents to reflect the CDA, then that could potentially drag this out a little bit further. It is kind of silly, as the field office even mentioned, because we would essentially be amending those documents to then terminate them effectively. So that's one scenario. If they accept our submission of the ordinance that created the CDA and everything's good, then hopefully we can wrap this up, put a bow on everything and move to close sooner than later. WIDA in all this has also been coordinating with the field office to get their vouchers set up so that they can be in place when we need them. I had an email exchange with Stephanie Elder from WIDA this afternoon. What they're doing is they're putting in a revised submission for 2 potential dates, one with the vouchers going in effect on December 1st and then one on January 1st, and whatever happens, happens. So we're still kind of in limbo, I guess is the takeaway there. I'm hoping that we get word back from legal here in the next week or 2. And if we do, our legal team and everybody's still ready to move quickly to closing this month. That's about all I had on the Section 18 front. Any questions?
Any questions? It just seems to me we would have told them that the CDA had taken over.
Yeah, in my review of our files, I couldn't find anything that indicated that. I had our Stafford at Jim Stats look through his files and he couldn't find anything either. So it's possible that it didn't happen. But they may or may not care.
Are there still files over at 509?
Yeah, I looked through those too.
Oh. Okay, well, we'll stay tuned. Either that or we can go riot.
Yeah.
So,
I'm hopeful that we'll some resolution soon.
the only thing that bothers me is it's a loss of income for us. So, you know, I think that they should be sensitive to that.
Yeah, there's yeah. Anyway, we'll leave it there.
Okay. 7.2, discussion and potential action to approve an insurance policy with Bear Insurance Services.
Yeah, so in your package is the insurance policy from Bear Insurance. This is through the League of Wisconsin Municipalities. The premium came back, as you saw, about $78,000 for a policy that doesn't drop coverage. Actually, I guess it does drop our cyber insurance policy because that'll now be covered through the Village Insurance. But aside from that, it was comparable to what we were previously under with EMC. So I'd just be looking for, unless there's any questions or comments about what's in your packet, motion to approve that.
The one thing I would mention, and I mentioned this to Alex earlier today, I was very pleased to see some of the services we can get through that policy from the league. They offered a number of things. So as you go through that policy, you'll see a whole list of league services available if you have the policy.
Move to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. And thank you, Alex, for keeping us covered and there was no hiatus in our coverage. 7.3, discussion and potential action regarding new leases for tenants at residential units at 509 North Main Street, 100 Meadow Lane, 101, 104, and 105 Meadow Lane. They were in your packet. This was all done to, one, correct language issues and other things, and to update the leases, and also to prepare for the switch to Section 18. So we're all ready to go, and so are the tenants, once we get the lease where we want it. So is there any discussion or comments? Yes, Rebecca.
Just related to the, I know sometimes it's difficult to terminate leases with folks because of tenant laws and stuff. Does this clarify those aspects that were, I know we've had some discussions in the past. This is a little hot, sorry. Does that clarify? I was reading through it and it seemed like it did, but can you just kind of go through that a little bit?
Yeah, so I think
Basically to better protect us.
the leases themselves largely model what we had before. And obviously we're governed by the Fair Housing Act and all of that. But between the format of the leases and what's in the tenant selection policy, which we'll review here in the next item, I think it does give us discretion, obviously within the laws, to do what we need to do to make sure that we're running our property effectively and efficiently. You know, I would say that the leases themselves largely reflect what was already in there from all that standpoint.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Anything else you or Jay want to offer us? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further comments? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I did know there was clearer language on bed bugs than what I remembered. Good work. I'm not quite sure if all residents, I mean, we're talking about reviewing their former residence for bed bugs, even if they don't live in the area.
Yeah, so that's for that language was contained in the tenant selection policy for the next item, but that would be a tricky piece to coordinate. However, I can talk about that when we get to that and show how, or give an example of how other facilities do that kind of work.
Okay, all right. All right. So we're at 7.4. All right, discussion potential action regarding a tenant selection policy pertaining to residential units at the CDA properties at 509, 101, 101, 100, 101, 104, and 105 Meadow Lane.
So as you can see by these titles, we're gonna have to think of a new name for that side of our housing division. What was formerly our public housing program is no longer, so I mean, we may have to think about calling it something else. The tenant selection policy, as I kind of mentioned there, works hand in hand with the leases. This is an important document, and it is modeled roughly off of our admissions and continued occupancy policy, the ACOP that we had under the HUD program. It does have some changes that were needed basically to keep us in compliance with fair housing law as it relates to senior housing. But just to touch on what you were saying about the bed bugs. So the way that some property management companies would go about that, obviously, if they have a resident moving in from out of state or something like that, they will attempt to coordinate with the resident to get a third party to go in and do an inspection. And similar to the contractors that we use to do treatment of bed bugs, I mean, there are people in other states who would do that kind of activity. So that's how that particular piece would work. A lot of this comes down to verification and enforcement, which is always a challenge. But I do believe that this probably gives us a little bit more meat on the bones to head off some of those issues before we experience them at our facilities. The thing that I'll point out with the tenant selection plan regarding to the senior policy, this here is very similar to what we instituted this last spring at Jefferson Square. And that, again, is to just keep us in compliance with federal law. Outside of that, much of it is the same without the income restrictions. Obviously, we are renting at market rate now. And that's kind of the gist of how this looks.
Questions?
Questions?
Alex, is the age 55, is that something that's set?
So that's according to fair housing law. So that's where they set the line. 62 is often used in some of the HUD programs, and I do think fair housing law also has a 62 and up program. However, my understanding is that at the 55 and up, you'll see this thing here that says at least 80% of the units are occupied by someone 55 and older. My understanding is the 55 and up allows for that. If you're going to 62 and up, it has to be 62 and up, and that's a hard line with 100% of the building. So currently, we have people who live at 509 in the duplexes who are under that. So if we were to then switch out of the HUD program, we basically we couldn't have this policy, or we couldn't have the 62 and up policy in place. So that's my understanding of the distinction there.
So with this policy, 55 is considered elderly?
Yeah, we're all.
Yeah, it's, let me see if I could pull it up, actually, just to give you a reference. So I don't think they call it elderly, but they do call it 55 or older exemption. So the housing exemptions, meaning you can't discriminate against protected classes except for these three for older persons. This thing here. Under a federal or state program designed to assist elderly persons intended for and solely occupied by 62 and older, that's what I was referring to, or the 55 and up. So we'd be looking at the 55 and up, which says at least 80% of the units. And then we have to have policies and procedures. We also have to market it as 55 and up and have a verification program as well.
Rebecca?
So I know we're looking to at the new facility when we finally get that. We're looking to have that all at market rate. Correct?
To have
Have them at market rate
In-
with the voucher, with this voucher program, like this. They're at
similar
market,
to how
similar to how we're
after
doing now.
outside of the public housing program.
Right. So there's going to be more than just what we have right now
Correct.
available. Will those also be considered for this, or will they be at the actual market rate without? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Sorry.
so that would be a decision that we would have to make when we get to that point as to how we want to set policy for that facility.
Okay,
Right now, this only applies to our current facilities.
okay, thank you.
And does the age restriction also apply to disabled people?
Yeah, so this 55 and up, 80% of the unit applies across the property.
Okay. Any other questions?
So then, just to clarify, that puts the onus on Jay to make sure that we're at that 80% threshold, right? So if we have an individual there or multiple individuals who are, whether they're disabled or not, who are under that threshold, we just need to be keeping track of that.
Okay. So do we have a motion to approve the tenant policy?
I thought somebody did. Oh, that
don't
was
think
the
so,
other
no.
one. I'm sorry. I'll move to approve. I just made it.
Oh, I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
I'll just add to that discussion there that those policies, while we approve them tonight, they won't go in effect. We administratively at staff level, we won't be using those and implementing those or the leases until we're out of the public housing program.
Okay. We are locked and loaded. All right, resolution 2024-515, approving a relocation plan for 420 North Main Street and 424 North Main Street, and authorizing the executive director to submit all necessary documents to the Wisconsin Department of Administration for review. And we have Andy on.
Yeah, so if you recall at our September meeting, the board authorized the drafting of the relocation plan. So Andy Kurtz is here from Veerbeker, who's our consultant services team on the call. Andy drafted the plans that are in your packet, and then I've got one of them up here on screen. Andy, would you like to pop off mute here and introduce yourself and talk a bit about what went into the plan and what the process is from here?
Andy, can you hear us?
I can, thank you. The site wasn't letting me get in and actually make the change, so I am. Thank you, Alex. My name is Andy Kurtz. I'm the manager of the Planning and Community Development Group at Veerbeker, and I'm working with Alex and the folks from Stafford Rosenbaum on going through the acquisition process for these two properties. These two plans are done under the small projects plan. Per state statute and DOA, we're able to utilize a short form essentially to create the relocation plans because there are two properties or less that are being acquired for the project. So both of these were created. The first one is for the DeForest Car Wash, which is a essentially vacant structure. It hasn't been in operation for more than 5 years. Essentially, in that particular site, the requirements for the CDA would be to assist them in moving any personal property that is on site. We did an estimate of what that personal property is. As the appraiser comes in, which I believe is a subsequent task, they'll confirm all of that. But our goal is to get this in front of the Department of Administration, let them review everything, be sure that we're in compliance with the regulations, and then get approval to proceed with relocation.
Okay. Questions for Andy or Alex? Rebecca?
Have we had any contact with the property owners yet?
Good question.
I have not for quite some time.
And they've been noticed of this, to our knowledge?
Not to this point. I
Not to
mean,
this
of
point.
the condemnation procedure, not to this point, to my knowledge.
Okay. When do they get notified?
My understanding is that that would happen when we actually send out the jurisdictional offer to purchase. Andy, does that jive with your understanding?
We would probably send out a notification to them that a condemnation process is going to occur sooner than the jurisdictional notice. So that would be something that we would do subsequent to the relocation plan. So we have the determination of need completed. So that kind of kicks off that process. So we can send them the notifications to their rights related to admin 9206. And they have received some of that documentation previously, and we will get that to them again to assure that they have copies. But that process can start essentially now.
Okay, thank you.
And is that something Beerbecker or Stafford Rosenbaum will draft?
We'll coordinate that between us.
Andy, can you talk a little bit about, so there's two relocation plans in here. Can you explain why we added the 424 North Main as well?
Right. So both properties fall under the statutory requirement for relocation, even though the 424 property is what's deemed a friendly acquisition, because the CDA has condemnation authority, and because the CDA does require the property in order to proceed with the project that they want to do, there isn't a waiver that exists between the property of 424 and the CDA that would say, if we can't acquire it via negotiation, we won't use condemnation. Now, obviously, you guys have been working with them. There is an offer that is pending. It is a friendly application and acquisition, but because of the fact you have condemnation authority, we do have to do a relocation plan for them also. So that's required under statute.
And originally, when we put relocation money in their offer, it ended up not being for relocation. Do we have to add additional resources or money?
There are some dollars identified in the plan, estimated right now. The determination of what will happen with the business and what they're going to do with the property has yet to be made. They have not made that determination. So we put some dollars in there just in case. But it sounds like their goal is to sell the property and not necessarily relocate the business. However, there may be some personal property in there that would get relocated, and that would be something that would be paid for as part of the process.
Okay.
And so if you recall, as an addendum to the option to purchase that we did execute with them, there was I believe it was like $35,000 that we spelled out as potential relocation benefit. But that is based on verifiable costs. So they'd have to
Right.
document basically.
Okay, so this isn't a whole nother batch of money. That was my question. Okay,
No, it should be encompassed in what you've already discussed.
Question, Keith?
Yes, I just, in contacting these people at 424, how are you contacting them? I mean, as far as by mail or, how is this being done?
424 is the liquor store, right?
I'm sorry, the 421, the car wash one.
That would be done via certified mail.
Rebecca?
What if they don't answer the certified mail, or what if they don't
Right.
pick up the certified mail?
We've made an attempt to deliver it.
That was my theory before.
I
Okay,
didn't know if there was like a publication.
It's different than a tax situation. So they're, putting it in the paper or something like that is not a requirement.
anything else, Alex or Andy?
That's all I have.
So I would ask for a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further comment or discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Thanks, Andy.
Yep, thank you.
7.6, discussion and possible potential action to authorize the executive director to execute all necessary documents to contract for property appraisal services.
Yeah, so as the memo kind of in your packet outlines, in order for us to better determine what that jurisdictional offer to purchase will look like, we have to have a property appraisal performed for 420 North Main. I did reach out to Metropolitan Appraisal Services. I was referred there actually by another individual. Apparently they are one of the preeminent appraisal services for condemnation processes. They're very comfortable testifying if it ever goes to court, those types of things. So I did get a quote from them. It's broken down into 2 phases, as you see in the memo, for a total of $5,500. And what I'd be looking for tonight would be authorization to basically go ahead and execute whatever documents we need to move forward with those services.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or comment? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, 7.7, Resolution 2024-516, amending an option to purchase for 424 North Main Street. That's the liquor store. Alex, do you want to explain it before we ask for a vote?
I just lost my screen. I'll look up at the top here. So this was something that the property owners reached out to request to see if we would be open to amending. There we go. Amending the option to purchase. They are potentially looking to, upon selling their property, purchase another investment property. It's called utilizing a 1031 real estate exchange. So essentially they can defer capital gains from the sale of their property as long as they're purchasing another property, a commercial property of equal or greater value, I believe. And in order to do that, we need to have language in the contract that says we're a willing party in that and we'll allow them to do that. I said I don't see why we would have any issue with that, so wanted to bring that to you all. Kind of piggybacking off the conversation that we were just having about relocation, I asked them if they had intention to move their business to another location. It doesn't seem like they do. It actually doesn't seem like they are set on performing the 1031 exchange, meaning they may not find another investment property, but they wanted to keep their options open, which I fully understand. The only one comment that I'll make here is that they did catch a typo in the amendment. So here where I've got highlighted, it says buyer party shall. I would just like to delete party. So when we eventually go to approve this, it would be with that modification. So it should only read buyer shall reasonably cooperate.
Okay,
Move to approve with the caveat that you can make that one typo correction.
is there a second? A motion and a second. Any questions or comments? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution. Oh, wait. Discussion and potential action regarding the operating and capital budget for Jefferson Square for the year 2025.
Yeah, so we can certainly go into some of the details here. The memo itself had the budget attached to the tail end of it. I always struggle with these big spreadsheet budgets to try to get it into a big enough form so that you can read it. So I apologize if it's still too small. But I think the big takeaway, just to hit this point right out from the outset, is the monthly fees, because I know that's going to be the question. So with the way this is currently configured, we are going to see a 4.5% increase in the monthly service fees from $540 to $565. I will say that it took a lot of work to get it down to that. And the insurance coming in as low as it did helped tremendously. So I just want to point that out from the top. Also, to note here at the bottom, you'll see the impact of Attic Angel with the $35,000 property management fee, and then the commissions fee as well. That commissions fee is an estimate. Obviously, we don't know how many units are going to be sold. So that's our best guess using an average. Jay, Carol, and I all had input into this, as did the Attic Angel team. Obviously, it was their first year going through it, so their input was fairly limited, but they did help us kind of better understand what their marketing needs are, things of that nature. So I guess if there's no questions, or if Carol or Jay don't want to chime in with anything, we could either open it up for questions, or I can kind of roll down here.
Rebecca.
Just one question. Have you had any discussions with the residents?
No, and that is something that in previous years, we've always had a lead up to this point to have really what's been last year anyway, over the course of the entire summer, working through this. With the transition with Attic Angel, it just hasn't happened. So I did let Attic Angel know, Demery know, that we would be looking at this tonight. And then I think the resident meeting is next Thursday. And so both Jay and I would be in attendance at that to walk through this budget with residents at that point. So no, nobody over there has seen this yet. And that I definitely have mixed feelings about that, because I would have liked to try to get this to them ahead of time, but it just didn't happen this year.
Is there any negative impact if we were to table it until the next meeting to
No.
give you an opportunity to do that?
No, we can certainly do that. If you'd prefer not to do the formal approval tonight, we can kick that out to the December meeting. That would be fine.
Okay, I would prefer that. I'm not opposed to this, but I don't want this to come as a complete surprise. It's done deal. You don't have any input.
Yep.
So I would like to at least give them a chance to have some input.
Yep, personally, I have no problem with that.
Okay, if there's no negative impact, that's what.
Do your policies have any kind of a time frame from the time it's approved to the time you can implement it?
No.
If you intend to put this into effect on January 1st, approving it in December might not work if there's something in the policy that states a 30-day or a 60-day window.
We don't have a budget approval policy
No, for the insurance.
No.
for the insurance.
No, I was talking about the maintenance fee going up. Is that what you're concerned about, is increasing the maintenance fee? prior
Right,
to-
that I'm
no
just
funding?
wanting to make sure that the residents have at least had an opportunity
Oh, I see.
to have some input prior to us approving this. Like I said, I'm not opposed to this. While it is only $25, that $25 does impose a little bit of a
Sure.
budget impact for some of these folks.
I think I understand what Carol's saying.
Yeah.
So you're right, Carol, my bad. So the monthly service fees increase does have to have a 30-day notice before we can implement that. Is that what you're referring?
Got it. Okay.
So if we were to approve this then on December 9th, the month of January
12.
12th. December 12th. I think I have another meeting December 9th, so it's just in my head now. P and Z, yep. Thanks, Brandy. So if we were to approve it on the 12th, then it would not be implemented in January. It would go in place in February, which would make the numbers different here.
Okay. That's where I was getting at is, was there going to be a negative impact?
So, I will fully own the fact that I didn't get this to residents in time. That falls on my shoulders, and I'm happy to take the heat for it.
I'll let you
with all
follow.
And with them
with
too.
them.
Yep. Alternatively, if you wanted to, if it was important to make sure that we do get this before them, before approving, we would just have to essentially either rework the numbers and which may lead to a greater increase in the
yeah.
monthly fees to accommodate for the lost month of revenue, or we would have to be comfortable taking a bit of a loss next year.
And I think that the latter thing you said was take a bigger loss and reduced income, meaning a higher increase. I mean, I don't think it's going to change the action that we take, but we're going to have to work at how we unfold it to the residents. So I would oppose waiting until December, not because I don't think that's a good
No.
idea, but because I don't think that it works to their advantage or ours.
And I would have only wanted that to have happened if it wasn't going to have a negative impact. And it sounds like it would.
Yep.
So-
And like I said, I will fully explain to them and hope for understanding.
This year, I think they're ready for the fact that there's going to be an increase after we've done it previously.
One last question, and you may or may not have the answer to this. Do you know what, because I know a lot of these folks live on Social Security and some retirement. Do you happen to know what the increase is supposed to be for them this next year?
For Social Security,
What the percentage rate is?
I don't. I know in doing our recertifications over at Public Housing, the last increase, man, I wish I remembered percentage wise. It was a decent increase. I don't know what it's going to be.
Okay.
I think it's around 3%, but I can check and see the letter I got.
Yeah, it would be nice if it was close to that. So I mean, I'm going to move to approve this if that's what you're needing, but I'm concerned a little bit about their reaction.
Americans will see a 2.5% increase in their Social Security benefits. Those of us on Social Security can respond.
I mean, $25 is not a whole lot.
Right, right.
I care.
We care.
I will say too that we did include, I think it was last year, we made the amendment to the occupancy agreements and offered to anybody who had an existing contract who wanted to amend their occupancy agreements to allow them to do kind of that reverse mortgage thing and pull from their buyout to help pay any if they need it.
Okay. Any further questions? If you made a motion.
I said I moved to.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
That's okay.
And did you make a second? We have a motion and a second. So if there's no other comments or questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Right.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'm sorry.
We didn't get a vote.
Sheila, did you vote?
Yes, aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, 7.9. Discussion regarding the operating budget for CDA's properties at 509 North Main Street and the Meadow Lane duplexes.
That's a better sounding name than 100, 101, 104, 105.
It's like when you put a whole string of parcel numbers,
Right.
and I'm like, yeah, no, not reading those. Okay, so who wants to tell us a little bit about this? This is just a discussion, though. This is
Correct. Yep.
not action.
That's exactly correct. So this is just a discussion item, and the reason for that is twofold. One is with the uncertainty around when we're going to make this transition, I figured it probably would be better to hold off on doing a formal approval tonight. And hopefully at the December 12th meeting, we'll have a little bit more clarity to actually do a formal approval. The other reason being, I would like to have us separate this into 3 distinct budgets, one for each property. I think that's just a more best practices approach. And also our assessments are going to change because we're no longer under land use restriction for affordability. So it's going to help, I think, to have a distinct like net operating income for each property for assessment purposes as well. So the goal here tonight is just to kind of give you a sense of what this looks like with some of the changes, and then we'll bring it back in December for approval, likely in 3 distinct budgets. The biggest ticket item, and it looks like my image got cut off here, so I apologize for that. Biggest points to note are the change in revenue, which we can't see what our old revenue was, but it essentially doubled our revenue, assuming that we do go forward with the vouchers, which is a big thing. But it's important to keep in mind that with that, we're also no longer receiving the capital fund subsidy from HUD for emergency repairs, for capital expenses, those types of things. So we're going to have to treat these properties in this budget in a similar way that we do with Jefferson Square in terms of making sure we're planning for capital improvements at these properties. Granted, eventually when we have the new facility, so our capital improvement plan for these has to take into account that we're eventually going to be selling these properties. But if emergency items come up, we also don't have a capital reserve right now to draw from. So while it looks great that there's this additional revenue, I just want us to keep that in mind as well. Aside from that, on the expenses side of things, we tried to keep most of those things tracking with how we've currently been doing activities over there. The one change that I'll note is with unit turns. Again, with the need to now market these units to the general public and not have sort of a built-in waiting list, we felt we would have an additional allocation to make sure that we're making sure these are, not that we never did this, I mean, they're always quality, but we may stick a little bit more money into them knowing that we have to now put these on the open market as well. You can see the net here. It will be interesting to see how this breaks down by property. That will be a little bit of an exercise to go through. So take that total dollar number with a grain of salt because it may look different by property when we get into that. Jay or Carol, is there anything that you guys would like to add on this?
Carol?
No, I can't think of anything else that needs to be mentioned.
So I would open it up to questions. Okay, so
No approval needed, no action needed. I will bring this back in December in likely a different form.
okay. 7.10, discussion and possible potential action regarding the operating budget for redevelopment for the year 2025.
Yeah, so this year's redevelopment budget looks quite a bit different than in previous years, in a very good way. So the first thing I'll bring to your attention is the donations line here. That 1.5 and change is reflects the village funding per the agreement for our development project. I did anticipate hopefully one additional loan application coming in. But that's it on the revenue side. And then the big ticket items on the other on the expenditure side are purchases. So this would be site acquisition of the various properties that we're looking at, option fees associated with those. And then the account redevelopment cost is essentially intended to be a pass-through for us at this point. When we start to develop the project in earnest, we'll be creating an LLC, again, that the CDA will be the owner of, and this will be the account that distributes funds to that entity to then incur project costs. And that is all part of our eventual application to WIDA for tax credits funding, which I should probably throw on the agenda here maybe in December, a primer on that program just to get you all up to speed on what that actually looks like and what that entails, because that's going to be a critical piece of our funding for the project. Any
Okay.
questions on the redevelopment budget? Carol, anything you want to add to that?
Nope, nothing to add.
And this one I am looking for approval.
I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
We have a motion by Doug. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And a second by Keith. Any further questions or comments? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. All right. There is no old business, so we'll move to reports. Jefferson Square financial update.
Just a few things to point out. So Attic Angel will be providing these statements, creating these statements and providing these going forward. I think this was the last one that our team did. You will note, where is it? 305 and 306. We had an adjustment to the wages and benefits. We should have been allocating wages and benefits to public housing because of the Attic Angel transition, so we made a correction there. Other than that, we had some invoices from this year, from earlier this year that hit for dryer vent cleaning and rodent control. Outside of that, this was kind of a normal month for us. Jerry or Carol, is there anything?
Okay. Anything else, Carol?
No,
Okay.
Are we looking for?
Nope, no approvals on the financials, unless you all end up giving me direction to do otherwise, we'll probably just keep it that way.
All right.
I was
And
gonna
this
say,
went through 10/31.
this is through 10/31, and it normally in early November, we would get things like our interest numbers and we would post those back to October. Well, we didn't have those on October 31st, so it's a little bit short of some items, but we'll catch those up when Attic Angel now records those things in November. I don't know that Attic Angel will have these reports ready as early in the month. So you may not see a November statement in December. It might end up being that you go back to kind of the way it used to be, where in January you'll see November's numbers and by February you'll see December's numbers. You may start seeing things a little later than you used to.
Okay. All right. How about public housing?
On the public housing side of things, we had some more legal fees associated with all the HUD back and forth. That's been another cost to all that. And then we had some bed bug costs as well. Jay, did you want to maybe touch on the bed bug update?
Well, of course, we can't have a meeting without talking about bed bugs. So Alex had contacted a company for bed bug to do a heat treatment for bed bugs. It was Elite Pest Solutions. They came out, did an assessment, met with the resident, gave her a specific set of rules to to follow for pre-treatment. And October 18th, they came out. They brought some big heating units in and raised the temperature of every square inch of that unit to 125 plus degrees for no less than 3 to 4 hours. So knock on wood, we have not had any notification from our resident that she has seen any sign of bed bugs. We're super hopeful that this will put a bow on that. And I guess we'll just be keeping this. I do want to just say though, I personally haven't lost any faith in the way that we were handling bed bugs. I think our contractor that we've been using has done a fine job. He's successfully treated them multiple times. I think this is a last resort thing that we will definitely keep in our back pocket. But I think we'll still continue to do it and make sure that residents are hold them to the fire to do the right things so that we can get this stuff taken care of much sooner.
And did I understand you to say they were given guidelines for how to?
Yeah, so that's actually part of both companies' process is a specific set of guidelines that you're required to follow. Just like everything over there, follow through and is a tough thing to do. We'd have to take the residents' words for the fact that they do or don't do the things that we're asking them to do. It's a limiting factor in a lot of the decisions we make and the follow through that we have to have over there, unfortunately.
Sure. Okay. Questions on this? If not, do you have anything else on that? Okay, so let's go to the redevelopment division, financial update. Anything there?
Well, actually, I just want to pause for a sec. So it doesn't look like we have the housing division update on the agenda, but Jay, would you mind just kind of giving a verbal update on occupancy and those types of things?
Yeah, and I apologize for that. That's part of the transition to this new position. When I set up with Demery, with Attic Angel to get notified of this, I didn't do it early enough to have stuff ready for this the slide presentation, the packets. That's something I'll remedy for in the future. But she did get back to me and let me know that there still are 2 vacant units over at Jefferson Square, 714 DeForest Street, which was the most recent move out, has now been spoken for. They signed and gave a deposit. They sold it for $272,000. The residents decided that they did not want to do a complete upgrade with all new cabinets and vanities. So the price is a little bit lower than some of the other units that we've sold. They're going to go under full other renovations other than that part and are expecting to move in no later than February 1st. The other unit is 720 DeForest Street. As you guys may remember, we had that sold, deposit down, and the residents backed out last minute. That renovation is complete. And Attic Angel is working through the list again and trying to sell that unit. She did mention that there are a number of people that it's no different than what Alex struggled with or we've been struggling with. The barn is an issue. Also the timeline for moving in, particularly now that the thing is move-in ready, has also been an issue for people. So she said though that given the size of the wait list and their marketing, they are hopeful that it won't be too long. She also added that early in 2025, they are going to totally revamp all of the marketing materials for Jefferson Square. So that would hopefully make this a little easier process in the future. They hired a new maintenance man, Cam Shimniak is his name. He's a really good guy. By all accounts, he's doing a great job. The residents have had nothing but positive things to say to Demery. I also have had good interactions with him. I have not heard anything negative from any residents, which is probably as telling as anything else. So that would be all I know about Jefferson Square.
All
Yes.
right. Rebecca?
I actually had a conversation with a couple of people from Jefferson Square, and I asked them specifically how things were going. I've heard nothing but positive. I've heard no negatives at this point in time,
It's-
which is excellent.
Yeah, it makes me super happy. And not trying to, I just didn't know what we were gonna end up with. And when you hire a position, we didn't know what their management style was gonna be. We certainly didn't know what they were gonna hire for a maintenance guy. And so it sounds like it's going great. And I haven't had as much contact as I assumed I would with them over there. And hearing stuff like that, it makes me glad that it's working out that way. I don't want to be over there I don't want to stand over somebody's shoulder, so.
Well, there's Chud. I didn't see you come in. Hello. All right. Any other questions for Jay on that?
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about public housing. So as most of you are aware, we did have a resident and former CDA board member pass away last month, Judy French. She passed away on the 21st, and she was very well liked at our facility. She'll be missed, definitely. I saw her daily, talked to her daily. I arranged through, after being asked to, I arranged for a floral arrangement to be delivered to the Celebration of Life, which was last Friday. So the CDA we did do that for her. Of course, that leaves a vacancy in the units, which I actually this morning signed a lease with a resident who happens to be a former resident also, who signed a lease to move into that unit. We did a full court press on a voucher application, got that in, and it looks like we're set up for her to receive a WIDA voucher, which is a very good thing. It'll be a huge load off of us. We also have an individual, this is the first time thing for us, I think, recently, in recent memory anyway, of a transfer. One of our residents at 100 Meadow Lane is transferring to our other vacant unit at the 509 building so that we can satisfy the occupancy standard of our lease. So he's moving to a 1-bedroom there. We also signed a lease this morning, and he was moving stuff in this evening when I left to come to the meeting. So that then will leave us opening at Meadow Lane, which is a 2-bedroom with a garage, which will definitely need some updates and renovation done to it. But I feel like that's going to be a very much more marketable unit for us to put on the open market. So we will have that as an additional thing to do going forward here.
I can't get over how much nicer those units look with a garage. That's been a very helpful thing there. Okay,
I have a quick question.
yeah.
So I believe it was when Zach was still here, and the passing of Judy French kind of brings this back to mind. And I just want to reaffirm what I think was your direction at that point. But I think we had a discussion about potentially sending cards to residents of either facility who pass away. And I think you all said we should be doing that. I have not done that since that conversation. Is that still the desire? I'm seeing a lot of nodding heads. Okay.
But I don't think you should do it. I think it's something Rachel.
Coordinating it.
can handle.
Yep. Okay. I will make that a point so that we add that to our coordination. Thank you.
Judy was well loved all over town. She just was a sweetheart, and it was felt. I mean, a bunch of us would have lunch with her pretty regularly up at DeForest Family Restaurant. One thing I will say and this has nothing to do with you guys, but when her obituary was in the paper, there was a picture from when she was a very young woman. So nobody recognized it and just kind of passed it by. And then someone said, well, Judy died. And then when I went back and looked, I was very surprised. So,
I also didn't recognize her. I mean, I was looking for it and I was pleasantly surprised. It really made me understand why she dressed up the way she did when she went out. She was a lot of fun.
yeah. So anyway, she will be missed. Yeah, I was gonna say 85 or 80. Yeah, 85. Okay. All right. Anything with redevelopment for financial update?
The only thing that I'll note here is that you'll see on the donations line that we did get the $462,000 deposited there. That was to help us process the Section 18 disposition, that transaction. Obviously, with that not having happened yet, those funds are still sitting there. But outside of that, business as usual.
All right. Prudential investment statement?
Tick down. I don't really have much else to add other than that.
Okay.
Mhm.
Communications, I don't know of any. And then item 11, the Community Development Authority will convene into closed session pursuant to section 19.851E of the Wisconsin statutes for purposes of deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Tonight, establishing a negotiation position to acquire property in redevelopment project area A.
Move to go into closed.
Is there a second? Will you take roll call, please?
Commissioner Mankey? Commissioner Witherspoon?
Aye.
Yes.
Commissioner Wiersba?
Aye.
Commissioner Briggs?
Yes.
Commissioner Upadi? And Chairperson Cahill Wolfgram.
Yes.
All right, give me a second to get the breakout room set up.
Okay. We will reconvene into open session. There is no action resulting from closed session. I would entertain any other business to lawfully come before the authority. And I would note that the meeting date is not December 9th, it's December 12th. So please note that in your calendar. Yeah. Planning and zoning is December 9th. So, all right, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned at 7:23 PM.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night, Sheila. Thank you.
Sheila. Night. Night.